Ready? Okay. All right, calling the order meeting date Wednesday, April 19, 2023. It is 5:34. Hammond City Council Chambers, roll call, Michelle.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Here. Here.
Old business, approval of March 2023 financial report. Evan?
Michelle, can we show the group kind of the formatting changes we discussed for these? Or the
Yeah.
ends?
I mean, I hadn't had a chance to communicate that to David Mia, so this is the same format,
Sure.
but yeah, if you'd like to.
So, Michelle, aside from the budgeting, but just making this information easier to understand and sort of make decisions with, there's just a lot going on with all these columns. We'd like to simplify this and just clean up some, like, there shouldn't be 3 different columns, like maybe have actual, I don't know, a month to date for March, a year to date, and then a budget or something, but just remove these. And I don't know if y'all have any feelings on that one or another, but
More
Would it
like
be easier to read in a P&L format, maybe?
Yeah.
and not on like 20 different pages, and so just make it more, I would call actionable. Michelle's that a good?
I think it's a good summary.
We're trying to do.
I think that's a good idea, yeah.
And we talked about this in our last kind of executive committee meeting, was just that so oftentimes, and I'm guilty of it too, I'm just like, well, I don't really know, so sure, approved. And we need to, and Evan made this point, and we really need to be able to really digest and understand what we're approving. It's our, I mean, it's our responsibility, so I think
Right.
that's a good suggestion.
So we'll have, Michelle and I will kind of work on how to do that. The data itself, I'd make a motion we approve it.
Second,
Yes.
John Exnicius,
Yes.
Elizabeth Hollywood,
Yes.
Chelsea Kesnick,
yes.
Kaylee Norton,
Yes.
Cassie Reagan,
Yes.
Evan Singer.
Yes.
All right. Next on the agenda, approval of meeting minutes from March 15th, 2023.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Todd DeLon,
Yes.
John Exnicius,
Yes.
Elizabeth Hollywood,
Yes.
Chelsea Kesnick,
Yes.
Kaylee Norton,
Yes.
Cassie Reagan,
Yes.
Evan Singer.
Yes.
All right. Next thing, creating the annual partner sponsorship package, which I know that we talked about last time. So, Michelle, if you want to kind of bring the package up, and I guess if it looks good, we could make a motion to approve and kind of go with it.
Yeah, I think the last time we spoke, I guess we kind of like just wanted to sit with it if anyone had any changes that they'd like to see occur with this. When our conversation left off with North Oaks, they were basically anticipating a proposal from us while they're budgeting for their upcoming fiscal year, which we're also doing. And they follow the same kind of fiscal year that we do starting in July 1. So if we'd like to deliver on that promise, if this looks good, obviously I would probably jazz it up a little bit with like some narrative in the front, but this is like the breakdown, not necessarily the final thing I would like send to them in terms of, just like a welcome and a thank you, like a bit more formal and personable. But this is like the breakdown of the sponsorship levels themselves.
Is this the same as the last board meeting? So, okay.
The only question that I do have, just to remind me, when we came up with this, does this limit us to so many sponsors per year that we can actually give them coverage on all these things?
Yeah, so in order to sufficiently do this, it would basically be limited to one sponsorship per level per year.
Okay.
So we could have 3 organizations, but once the gold is done for that year, then they're that gold sponsor for that year, and then so on and so forth.
Okay.
And I have a question too. Which parts, again, of this, is it all of it, or, well, obviously not all of it, but some of it is being taken from what the DDD has in agreement with? We're sacrificing DDD marketing for these sponsors, right?
So I would say like 2, and I would say not directly. Like we would basically be doing all of our work that we currently do, and then like adding on like X organization is supporting this work.
Got it.
So like for our like full page advertisements and Tangy Lifestyles, if we put an advertisement in there, it would still be what we want it to be, but we would say with our gold sponsor support X company.
Gotcha.
So it wouldn't be advertising for them and their organization. It would be basically putting their logo on everything that we're already doing.
Gotcha. So we're just taking our, say, Tangy Lifestyles ad contract that we already have and adding a sponsor to that ad,
Right.
basically. Okay, cool.
And if we were on a radio interview, we would maybe
Invite
let
them
them
on.
come in if we had an event so that they could just kind of plug themselves and say they'll be there or whatever that may be. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve this as our package to offer if you guys are, unless there's anybody else that has.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Todd DeLon,
Yes.
John Exnicius.
Yes.
Elizabeth Hollywood.
Yes.
Chelsea Kesnick.
Yes.
Kaylee Norton.
Yes.
Cassie Reagan.
Yes.
Evan Singer.
All right, new business, providing recommendations to city council for member appointments. Michelle, if you want to kind of talk about where this line item came up and we can discuss on it.
Yes, so in your packet, you'll see after, it's underneath fiscal year 2024 budget. I just went ahead and printed out, copied and pasted what is in our statute that kind of determines how we do our nominations and how our nomination process works, and ultimately, our members are appointed by council. Given that we've had competitive nominations over these past 2 rounds where we've opened things up, it's been brought to our attention that it would be ideal for the council to have a recommendation from the board of that group if we felt that that was something that we could do. We do have a history of doing that for a few years ago, but we stopped doing it also a few years ago. So this actually was requested to be put on the agenda by the mayor for us to discuss to see if that was something that we wanted to continue doing. So
I thought we said, I remember when the board used to do that, and I thought it was a concerted decision that we decided not to make a recommendation for many reasons, is that, the people are right, it's not, we don't have that legislative authority. It's the council's, the council has to appoint, and we're in a situation where we are picking somebody over somebody else
Yeah.
when they're here, and then we have a situation, well, that person might not be confirmed by the council, and then we've made an awkward,
Well,
an
what
awkward
my
situation.
thoughts
Yeah.
are is I think that I would assume the meaning behind the whole way that statute is written is for the people who are recommending them to be the ones to actually make a non-biased group here, that we should not be involved in that process.
That's true,
And,
yeah.
and, I think we just need to make the council aware of how the process works, apparently. If they think that they shouldn't be on their back, they need to understand why that is, and they should be making that decision.
Right, and I
You know,
mean, yeah, absolutely. And this only, so, the way that the statute works is that I see this only happening in like 2 of the nomination situations where we have, because if we have, like, the mayor having an appointee, the chamber having an appointee, we really have,
It's east side and west
it's
side.
the east side and the west side, where people, it's just who can be nominated by, by those businesses. And again, I don't think the onus should be on us to determine who we pick out of those people. That's, really,
The point of the reason that they have it there.
right.
Right. How many of you guys are stockholders?
Yeah,
You get an annual proxy when you have a stock, when you own stocks, and that stock proxy tells you the board recommends the following things. So I don't think it's against the rules or the legal rules for us to make a suggestion to the board. It doesn't have to be verbal, it could be in writing. We could give them a piece of paper and say, here's your proxy vote, your vote on this is who the board recommends, and then they can make a decision based on that. That's the way I understand that to work. Am I wrong?
Well,
Well,
I think it's the.
We haven't made a
frankly.
recommendation
Yeah.
in a couple of years to council. So, the nomination process, like Elsbeth said, when a statute writes that there's a nomination process, it's assuming that there may be more than one nominee. It
Right.
doesn't say that in a case of if there's more than one nominee, kind of laying out those guidelines. But we haven't recommended to council, the board has not recommended to council who they would recommend for the appointment, because the way the nomination process is done is to be informed by each of those respective groups, and then it is the council's place to basically choose that,
so
and
if
appoint that person.
So if they, okay, so if we wanted to change this process, we'd have to change the statute, and the city council would have to vote on that?
No, it'd have to be changed by the state legislature, like it'd have to go to the state legislature to change that. And we've talked about maybe improving some of these things, but it's a long process and it's not, and kind of to what Michelle pointed to, like, it is not, because this was a process that's supposed to be done by DDD businesses, DDD property owners, those things, us telling, after people have been nominated by those parties, us asserting what we think, who we think should be here, I think is us inserting ourselves in the process that we're not supposed to be.
And I'm agreeing with that.
Well,
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
do I remember correctly that the last time we made a recommendation, the council went against our recommendation?
I think that happened as well.
And that's why we stopped making a recommendation, because what good does it make to make a recommendation if they're not going to listen to us anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then it's us
Then everybody's
against them.
Further device.
And it's like, right. But
But
I think we're.
I
Makes it
think
real
that,
awkward for everybody.
I think that's what happened. I think we stopped making recommendations after that happened.
Well, I think they're, I just
What
remember
we
us
have
having
in
a
place looks
conversation.
really
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think,
I mean, I think it's a great problem to have, is that so many people want
Yeah.
to serve,
Yeah.
that,
well, and I think we just need to somehow make city council aware that that's why the process is in place, because we're not supposed to be involved in that.
So hopefully we don't have this again until the end of the year, when some of the seats have to be filled. So maybe we
Heads
just
up in
either
advance.
send them a written explanation of
Right.
why they have multiple, hopefully, multiple
Yeah.
candidates, nominees, or go to the council meeting and explain it to them.
Right.
we can certainly do that.
Okay,
And I think the concerns brought to my attention at council when they're making the appointments is, it's uncomfortable for them to have to choose between, three, they can only choose one. And so, I've made sure I've spoken to a few council members that, if someone is not appointed, we try to keep that door open for them to collaborate with us in other ways. And I try to keep that communication on the back end, because, we wouldn't necessarily want to turn anyone away if they are, motivated enough to want to work with us. So I try to keep that door open, but it was requested that we discuss, and we have, so.
So I'm sorry, I'm catching up, but is that the issue, that there was too many nominations? And
No.
They had to choose.
Yeah.
They had to make the decision, and they didn't want to make that decision. They want us to make a recommendation, but if our statutes don't say that we're supposed to do that, then Elspeth's right.
Yeah.
That's not our,
Okay.
well, the other thing, and I don't know if there's any way of changing the voting process, or how to select that person, but it's whoever states the person's name first. Like, there might be somebody on the board that's like, I'm good with either of those two, maybe not that one, but whoever names the guy first to go in the line, they kind of get
Like
the,
whoever makes the nomination.
whoever makes the
Yeah,
nomination
Yeah,
first.
absolutely, it's a
Yeah.
kind of a rush to the.
Yeah, so I don't know, how do you even make that process more fair? Is there a way to make that more fair in front of the public? I don't know. I mean,
And you could do
It's
like a
you
closed.
could say you can only pick one, or,
I don't know if you can do that. There are other voting processes that's not an open motion of like a first and a second, but, that would be like a whole other thing. I mean, usually what happens is I present the packet of information, the nominees are present, they would speak to the council, and then there's a moment of silence, and one of the council members makes a
Just a
motion,
moment of
and someone
silence,
seconds
yeah.
it, and it passes or it fails. So,
Yeah.
and that's just.
so it's
the way
whoever's up to the
business is
plate
done.
first,
Yeah.
and hopefully they like the guy that got called first.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So is it possible to do it kind of like what y'all were saying, like a survey, like an anonymous survey, and then you're just discussing it in public, like the results in public?
What do you mean?
Like, rather than doing it face to face, sending out like, these are all the nomination, like basically the packet that's put together, sending that out, having them vote beforehand, and then discuss the results right at the meeting.
That way they only had a choice to choose one person
city
and see how it
council?
lays out.
Yeah.
The city council?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's
Can't.
open meeting laws. They
Okay.
can't discuss, it's like talking quorum. They can't discuss anything outside of the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, if they knew the agenda item was on the agenda, then they could talk to one of their fellow members and discuss that outside of.
And they certainly can talk to, I mean, if they want
Yeah.
to approach one of us about, you know.
Okay, well, that's, I guess not in our, they have to figure that part out, but at the end of the day, you're all on the same page that this is their job based on the statute. Okay, next. The next thing is the, proposed budget for fiscal year 2024. I know, Evan and Elsbeth and Michelle talked about this. I was not able to be part of that. Whoever wants to lead that conversation.
I will probably.
Okay.
So in your packet, you'll see the paper-clipped section, which has a few different documents. I will say that I have spent many hours looking at this spreadsheet and working through all these numbers. And so in my conversation with Evan and Elsbeth, also looking at our financial statements, which we approve, we know that there's a lot going on here and there's a lot for you to understand, to confidently interact with and be able to make a decision. So I went ahead and I prepared basically a just cover letter, just a budget note to summarize each of the sections of the budget with a high-level overview. And then, so that's the first page. The second page is the actual budget, including the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2024. And then the pages after that are basically supplemental documents that are like the numbers behind the numbers from what you see on the first page. So if you want to look at anything, I just recommend looking at this sheet if you don't want to look through all the other spreadsheets. But basically, while I'm preparing this budget, I had to do some research just to make sure that we are kind of following or just researching best practices from the Louisiana Legislative Auditor for government financing. So I spent quite a few hours just looking through all of their resources with regard to, preparing budgets for a political subdivision. And then also working with the city to make sure that we're working on their timeline. They're requesting that we have an approved budget to them no later than May 5th. And then we'll follow their budget adoption process, which will occur later this summer. While preparing this budget, of course, I had to make a few assumptions related to a few items. As we normally have to do, you have to make assumptions about something. So the budget presented basically is like the board's wish list. It is like everything that we've discussed related to events. There's been like some also discussion on the back end of like, we've talked about cutting some events, but what does that really look like, and communicating that to the public. And so just for the sake of like putting everything out on the table, this budget was done with all of the events that we have done in the past. And then also all the projects that we've discussed that would require some sort of fund allocation. And so with that, we are projecting to spend more than what we are making in fiscal year 2024. So we would be dipping into our fund balance around $75,000. I'll kind of leave that there with that overview. In terms of the revenue summary, you can kind of see that listed here of the assumptions I made and some of those additional worksheets that I did to have prepare those numbers behind the number. And then in terms of expenses, like I said, we are planning basically to include, we've talked about the sidewalk program that we've offered. You can kind of see that there. We've never budgeted for that before, so I put that in as 20,000. You can see other items listed here that are underneath the expenditures. We have had discussion about the welcome sign, and you do see that reflected in the budget underneath the transfers out. And the reason why that is reflected as a transfer out instead of an expenditure is basically just a technicality with the city, how we have to represent where those funds are going. So with all of those summaries in hand, like I said, we would basically be dipping into our fund balance of around 75,000. And then that would be ending our fund balance with around 320,000 at the end of fiscal year 2024. So I'd be happy to just give you all a moment to take a look at this. If you have any questions about any specific projection, happy to answer it.
So, I'm so sorry. So this doesn't take into account any sidewalk projects that we might do?
They had them.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh, it does?
Yeah,
I
20,000.
missed
It's
it.
under, it's at the bottom.
I think it was 20 grand.
The second
20?
to last expenditure.
Or-
Okay, so that's the downtown, so that's the matching stuff, and that's just assuming that it's, don't we have 2 or 3 that are possible for next year?
Yes, so basically, like I said, we're over budgeting. We're going to spend more than what we bring in. So the sidewalk improvements was the last thing that I kind of looked at on
Okay.
this because we're still developing all of those criteria for what that program looks like. So I think, I guess in an effort to not, we're still over budgeting, but in an effort to not over budget, I just put 20,000, which is a little bit more than what we dedicate to facade grants. And I think our history of the reimbursements being more, obviously the one that we just did for La Coretta was kind of a special case. And the idea of reining in some of those costs and making the program a little bit more fair. But that number is totally up for discussion.
Okay,
I just
so if
didn't
we
know-
go over, we'll just go back to the city council and do a fund transfer?
If we did have to go over, yeah, that would be a decision that
Okay.
we make. Or if you feel you want to put more in there right now,
Are there things
It'd be
coming
better,
that could be
yeah.
more?
If we
Or-
think,
or-
I don't know. I know one of them is not as large. One of them, well, I don't know. It could be a corner, so a front and a side. I can't remember what the other one is right now.
yeah, the three in my,
There's 3.
there's 3, yes. So they
There's
would,
the corner of Thomas and Cherry.
and then there's on the corner of Cherry and Hanson. That would be the STOA group expansion.
Okay,
And then there's some improvements that are to be made at 113 Restaurant on the corner of,
okay, that's right. That's the 3rd.
And so we think based on those 3 projects, 20 grand is going to cover that? you think?
No,
I don't.
So we should add this then? We should up this, right?
have we, I know, I really can't base it, based on last year's where it was twice as much. We really can't base it on that, but has there been a year in the past, in the relative recent past, that we have done 3 of these in a year? No?
I don't think that we've done 3, but you had some information that we looked at the design committee. I think you had 3 other projects, and then we named 1 or 2 others that we've done that we didn't know what the dollar amounts were, but they've ranged from, our contribution being 6 or 8 to, well, excluding La Coretta, 15 to 20?
It was basically between 6 and 14, 15,000.
Okay, so,
So if you do 10,000 per project, that's 30 right
30.
there.
yeah, and it could be more than that. If it's a corner, if STOA is, that's going to be a corner, right?
Well,
That's
yeah, it will be
like
Cherry and
half a block.
Hanson.
Well,
Yeah.
why don't we just double it? It's better to under, or we think we're going to be tightening up on the?
Well, we-
Unless we're not
Should.
using
I mean,
the
we-
money, though.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
paid for some things that I think we traditionally would not have paid for this last one.
Well, that one was,
Tighten up
that
some.
one was extreme, but I think these are 3 that are probably, I'm just guessing. We did talk, and we'll get to design committee in a little bit, but we did talk about some ideas at the next committee meeting. We're going to try to tighten that up a little bit, put something together to bring here before we have any of those come up as an actual project.
Right.
But I still think that we're going to be at least in the $10,000, $10,000 to $15,000 range for at least two of them, the ones that are city corners. Well, I guess
They're all-
actually all three are.
It could be 40, 50K.
It could be. If we're trying to put the money in so we don't have to go to city council to get a fund transfer
Yeah,
approved.
I would say that would make sense to put it there if we really do think that's you're gonna be seeing these projects and knowing I think.
And there could be something else that would come up in that time frame.
So can we amend this in the budget, or what?
We
This is
haven't
just a
approved it yet.
proposal.
This is a proposal,
Yeah.
okay, so this
I will
is
say
just,
this too, and this is one of the things that I'm most passionate about, I think that we should do. But
Yeah.
we are, realize that with this, we're operating where we're gonna have a deficit, that we're dipping into the fund balance. So we just might wanna look at,
now this is the question that I had. We are dipping in the fund balance, although we have a lot of money in the fund balance. When you're operating a business, to me, some people say 3 months expenses, I'm like 6 months, because I'm a little more, I like to have 6 months, it makes me feel good. What should that fund balance really be if we're running this like a business, to where we actually are utilizing our funds to make improvements in our town and still securing our wages and everything else we have? Should we have a commitment to that and be,
So-
you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And trying to get like a budget principle, I'm not saying this is what we have to do, but this is what the city follows based upon what they've been provided by the Government Finance Officers Association. You can see this on the back page. It recommends that a general purpose government maintain an unrestricted fund balance no less than 2 months of regular general fund expenditures. So for us, we run around 20,000 is like payroll, keeping lights on, our like regular subscriptions, our regular bills. So we would be looking at around 40,000. I find that to be pretty low,
I
but
think
that's
so.
Yeah, I
just
think that's
one,
very low.
one like bottom of the barrel baseline is what I could find is like a best practice.
Well, so if we add this to the budget, we don't necessarily have to spend it. And one or more of these projects may not even manifest for 2024, might get pushed to 2025 or something like that. But this initiative that we encourage ties together the fabric of downtown. It encourages the building owner to comply with our master plan and it's not a directive, but our master plan idea for how the sidewalks, what they're constructed of, having the trees, having the tree grates, the whole thing. And I think this is it's a tangible thing
Oh, absolutely.
that, does nothing but, as our downtown expands out and more people are improving properties, it ties it all together.
Yeah, and
I think
I
that's
guess,
one yeah.
and that's why I guess what I'm saying is when we're looking at money to spend and being like, oh, we don't want to spend it because we're in a negative, in my brain, if we have $120,000 in our pot, anything above that, we should be using, and we should be using it astutely, we should be looking at what we're using it for, but we shouldn't feel like, oh, we're in a negative this year because this is what we're here for, to make.
Right.
I agree completely.
Yeah, I agree, and I follow that sentiment. The little caveat to that, though, with this is we're actually projecting like less revenue too here. Right, like, so we're, I
Yeah,
totally agree,
yeah,
but
I'm
like,
not
so there's something in that, I commend Michelle because she's trying, you're trying to be proactive and get this done on the appropriate timeline, which is, I understand, has never been done before, but so, that's, and one other thing I think we talked about was some of these expenses include like correspond with revenue that we are in this year, so I think, was that? the
Yeah, I
third
don't like
one?
that either.
Yeah, so I can explain that a little bit more. So basically, I will just say, the city's accounting is, I have like a master's in like city accounting right now because it's taken a lot to look at. Between cross-referencing basically how the money is in Munis, which is our accounting software, and like how to communicate how it's being used, are two different things basically. But the short of it is that this fiscal year, which ends June 30th, we had revenue for the bench sales for Railroad Park and for brick sales. We will spend some of that this fiscal year to pay for the bricks, the actual purchase of the bricks and the installation, and a few other extenuating items related to Railroad Park. I anticipate that, I don't have the exact number in front of me. If you take a look at the Railroad Park allocation, some of that is going to basically roll over in our fund balance for this upcoming fiscal year. So the different ways you can look at it is that we're basically, we're not spending some money that we earned this year, but we're spending it next fiscal year. So it goes into our fund balance, but it will even itself out basically over time. And so particularly with Railroad Park, like ideally our revenue and our expenditures would occur in the same fiscal year with better planning, and I hope that we'll get there. But with these bench sales and brick sales and the timelines not really working up to have the projects complete by June 30, we'll have those expenditures in fiscal year 2024.
Yeah, like, if it was a business, these expenses would have been recognized.
On the
once you
last-
recognize
On the
revenue.
right.
Yeah, so we're taking the hit this year when it
Yeah,
really
so-
happened
right.
last year, so.
We wanted to point, because that kind of softens this, but,
And how much does that soften it? How much money of that
So
negative is that?
actual revenue between both the bricks and the benches to date, if you look at the River Park overview, if you add them together, it's around 50,000. We'll spend 15, I'll just say 15 is like overdoing it. Well, let's just say like 8,000. We'll probably spend 8,000 this fiscal year between the bricks installation. And so basically 35,000 of that would be being transferred over to fiscal year 2024. And I anticipate an expense of, I can't see it, roughly of that to pay for the benches. But we'd also be doing additional campaign to sell courtyard furniture. And so those numbers are all like grouped together underneath the city's projects accounts. Like I can't parse those two things out. So
To wash.
right. Well, so the short way of saying is that like it basically nets out.
Right.
It basically zeroes out. Now, the other thing related to revenue, why, anticipating 11% reduction is because it's really difficult to estimate what we'll make in terms of property taxes.
Right.
So our projected actual at year end is 360,000 for this fiscal year. And the column isn't on here, but what we proposed of what we were getting for revenue this fiscal year was like 315. And so it's kind of difficult to assess, like, I don't want to say we're going to get 360 next year when it may wind up being 330. So what I did was basically an average of those past 3 years, and that kind of got us to where something I would see would be a little bit more reasonable. And then also less revenue due to some changes regarding our events, cutting the wine law.
So would you say you underestimated where you thought, like, where it's, like,
Underestimated revenue.
I basically
and
underestimated
overestimated to where this is a
Right,
very
yeah.
conservative
Yeah,
Right.
yes.
budget?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for helping me figure out what I was trying to say.
What all is included in the contract services and the fixed asset?
So contracted services, it got cut out, I forgot. So this, David Daniil, this is the annual amount we pay, roughly $2,000 for preparing the financial statements every month. All these other contracted services are for items related to the history exhibit. So Antoine Marketing and Design for artwork, and then the only quote that we've received thus far for the fabrication of those is around 10,000. And then, so if you add those two together, that gets you roughly to 15. And then the other 3,000 were for event photographers, other items that we kind of put within that category. I wish I had it in front of me, but that is like the gist of it.
Okay. And then for the fixed assets, that's for the iPads?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, do we have any other comments about that? All right. Next.
Well, so before we move
Yeah, we
on,
need
Sorry, I
Right.
apologize.
if you all feel
Bye.
comfortable to approve this budget,
So we are approving the budget.
Well, if you feel comfortable at this point to do so, if you don't feel like you have enough information to approve the budget at this time.
Well, can we make an amendment to adjust the budget for the sidewalks and then approve it?
I can just
Yeah.
make the changes.
Yeah, we
You
can just make the changes and approve it that way, because we haven't approved anything yet.
Oh, okay.
So just add, add
Okay.
whatever we want, and then I had to go, like, I think you helped me a lot with this, Michelle, but when we first talked, I could not grasp the expenditures versus transfers out, because it just seems like it's the same thing to me. So, but I think you made it clear in this, that these transfers out, this is actually for the sidewalk, that's actually a city project. And so it's not real, it's not I mean, it is a DDD expense, but it's not really a DDD expense. It's something that we're contributing to a city expense, or city project.
So,
mean, it really-
so we have an account underneath expenditures for sidewalk improvements. So that's why you see that reflected there. Underneath transfers out, transfer to debt service, which
Did
is
I
our.
say sidewalk? I didn't
Yeah.
mean I'm
Okay.
sorry. I meant city sign, the sign.
Okay, got it.
Sorry, yeah.
So yeah, underneath transfers out, 54,000, the last payment that we have to make for our bond. So we'll be finished paying that basically next fiscal year. That will free up another 50,000 that, in our budget. So we'll complete that in March 2024. The transfer to capital projects, yes, is basically just a formality of how the funds have to be represented, because we know the city has allocated 75,000. We don't have an account that says Hammond welcome sign. So in order for all of that money to meet in one pot with the city's money, it has to be a transfer to Fund 420, which is the capital projects fund with the city. That's just a lot of background explanation for a long way to say we are budgeting for it. It's just broken out separately for that reason.
So, do we have to state right now that we want to change that sidewalk?
If we want to approve the budget, yes.
Okay, so are y'all good with 40,000? I guess Cassie, that would be you, then probably the best,
I mean, so why don't we say 30?
30? Okay.
And then if we end up having 3 and it's more than that, then we can, we can handle it like we did this year. But that at least should cover, 2 of them, or come close to covering 2 of them. And we don't know for sure when none of them have started construction
They
yet.
could hit
None of
another
them-
year, it might not hit. another
Yeah,
year. Okay.
yeah,
But at least we won't have to go through city council.
right.
Okay, so I'll make a motion based on that change to approve the budget.
Second.
Todd DeLon,
Yes.
John Exnicius,
Yes.
Elizabeth Hollywood,
Yes.
Chelsea Kesnick,
Yes.
Haley Norton,
Yes.
Cassie Reagan,
Yes.
Evan Singer.
All right, next on the agenda, Railroad Park. Notification of ending of the warranty period, April 22nd, 2023.
Yes. So we're at that point in time where the warranty period is ending, and Roy is kind of cleaning up a few of the issues that need to be addressed. So it officially ends on April 22nd, which is Saturday. Now, Roy's not here tonight, but what he wanted me to communicate is there are certain items that we have asked, that we've asked about regarding the park of making some changes that weren't originally included in the original contract. And then there are also some items that, he's done his end of warranty assessment, that are expenditures that we need to think about in order to have a clean and nice looking park that are not covered under the warranty due to how the damages were caused. So you've got 2 documents in your packet. One is just railroad park maintenance, and then the second is a schedule of values from Kelly Construction. If you actually want to take a look at the quote, the schedule of values first, you can kind of see, we've talked about covering the storm drains, we've talked about installing a roof over the stage, and you can see some of those estimates here. I'm not asking you to approve this. I just want to bring to your attention that the only item listed in here that is time sensitive are the cast stone masonry to reinstall some of those caps that are on the seat wall. because of damages due to skateboarding in the park.
Didn't we have a skateboarding, like we,
So these stones that are damaged in particular are because they're on corners,
so there wasn't the
right, so it's,
protection that we have on the. rest
additional
of
recommendation is going to be install more additional anti-skateboarding structures
Yeah, we-
there. I don't have a cost estimate for that, but the ask is that while they're doing all these other end of warranty items, like cleaning up some of the graffiti, repainting some items, they went ahead and they cleaned, the bricks, I don't even know what it was called, but there are some issues with the bricks, so they went ahead and cleaned those up. They've maintained the fountain and making sure that it is in good working condition to transfer over to the city, for them to maintain starting on May 5th. And the only item that is not covered under the warranty that is time sensitive is that cast stone masonry in the amount of around $14,004.
14,000?
1,400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My brain adds zeros where it shouldn't. So yes, 1,400, is kind of the update there.
So are you asking us to make a motion to approve that amount so the contractor can get this done with all the other warranty items?
Yes, and we didn't really talk about this column on the budget, but part of crafting the budget was doing all of our actuals to year end, and I already went ahead and budgeted for that in our actuals to year end.
Are any of these other items budgeted?
So these listed are not, because I feel that it is in our best interest to get different quotes for these. The storm utility, water drains, we're basically looking at, I would want to see, talking with some other contractors to see, what the real needs are, and just making sure that, this is a true and actual cost. The roof in of itself was projected to be almost 30,000. And those are just, I don't know, in my opinion, for, I guess, what I've envisioned of what the, material cost would be and installing it, that seems a little bit high. I know things are really high right now, but, we would have to, especially for the roof, we would have to.
Well, now that we approved the budget, though, if this is something that needs to be added, we'd have to go through city council to add this stuff at this point.
So, if you look at, let me pull up this. So if you look at the River Park breakdown, this is kind of I think an underestimate, but, for fiscal year 2024, I basically put an additional 3,500 for other park expenses that are included in an expenditure account for our fiscal year 2024. So if we do happen to need funds, if we decide that a roof for the park is something that we want to take a more concerted look at, and we feel that that is too low, then we would either have to do budget transfers from other expenditure line items, or we would have to dip into the fund balance and ask for a budget transfer.
So would it, and I don't know if we can retract or just talk about this now that we've already approved it, but is this something that would make sense to even a percentage of this amount? If just to have it there, to not have to go through that process? To say, hey, whatever this total is, maybe we budget for, 50% of it. That way, if we decide to do some of these things, it's there, or
Well,
am I past that?
I think it just depends on the comfort level of how much we're dipping into our fund balance. So, in terms of having a roof on the stage, it is nice. It would be nice to have it, but if it is a priority, I would like for our budget to dictate our priorities, basically. So, I wasn't necessarily thinking, I'm thinking that the roof is something we can live without, and maybe fiscal year 2025, then we can take a look at it
Now,
then.
let me ask a question about that, because I know we've talked about this in the past, not to bring that up, but the roof thing, is it not a safety thing for these musicians with all their electronics and stuff, if we're going to use that stage? Is that what we're talking about?
We're all talking about that.
Well, think about rain here. It doesn't do this. It does this.
They're going to get wet anyway.
And I will say, as a
Okay.
contracted worker, a musician should have in there, they should have insurance that covers that while they are performing. That should be within their business, not within the DDD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying we don't visit it in the future, but.
That's true, I mean,
I
you're
think
gonna
we
get wet if
can-
it starts raining hard. It's not-
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, it's the
Well,
elements
the
of the work.
likelihood of having an event, if
And
it,
it's raining.
yeah, we're not gonna do that.
But I would say their insurance should be covering that.
Right. So, and I would also say too, like, that's why I would want to talk to someone a little bit more closely about like what the recommendation would be for a roof, because the roof basically only covers the first like 6 feet of the stage, or probably, I think the stage is 10 feet, so it's probably 8 feet, but there's still those 2 feet that are uncovered by the roof.
Right.
So, you know, I think that it would require, I just want to make sure that if we're making a decision to fund a roof, that we know that, I guess, the return is there.
And
We're
it's
not-
doing what we're wanting it to do.
Right, and we're
Yeah.
also not dipping into our fund balance. Like, I would want to make sure that we're budgeting for it.
So we don't
with
think
all
this
that
is
money.
important enough to deal with? right
I don't think for
Okay.
the
I don't think
the
they
2020.
I would agree.
Okay, all right.
Well, and the thing too, if it's, I mean, if we do a roof, people aren't gonna be out there anyway, because they're not gonna be covered, so it just kind of goes.
Well, we were out there for a rainy event, I remember, and the musicians were on the stage, right? Remember? It was
I mean, we put a tent out there for them,
Yeah.
and like, that's just
Okay.
kind of how we work with it. But I feel like in general, I mean, the roof,
Also, the shade, heat. I remember, what's her name? She was sweating her butt off. You remember the girl who came to the farmer's market from, the famous girl?
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Amanda
we had the
Shaw?
event- Amanda Shaw,
Oh,
yes.
well, so the
We had
interesting.
We had to move a tent out for, well,
She's from here.
she's a
Well-
local.
Okay, well, I'll just say, related to shade, if you look at how the stage is positioned, it faces sunrise. So the
wouldn't
only
help.
time you're actually gonna get shade is afternoon, and the market closes at noon.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it alone. Next, anybody else got some?
Wait, do you need us to make a motion for the $1,400?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, is this an exact amount?
So this
Without
is,
the
and I
state
tried to ask Roy if there was gonna be a percentage of administrative costs or project administration costs or profit and overhead. And he said, no, just go ahead and do it for that amount. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the $1,404 for, to reinstall the
Pavers.
cast stone masonry capping.
Second.
Todd DeLong,
Yes.
John Exnicius,
Yes.
Elsbeth Hollywood,
Yes.
Chelsea Kesnick,
Yes.
Kaylee Norton,
Are we voting on anything?
Cassie Reagan,
Yes.
I was like, no.
Evan Singer.
All right. Next on the agenda, what are we looking at? The railroad park?
Electrical
improvement
improvement.
Yes, before we do that, actually, I just wanted to mention, just a quick update about the water fountain and fence repair. All that's gonna be taken care of by insurance. The city is handling the repair, and it will be repaired in the same style as it was before it was damaged.
That was the issue with, like.
There was a car accident.
Yeah.
Yeah, a car
okay.
ran into it.
Yes. So hopefully, I mean, that's not obviously being covered by the contractor and the warranty. The city's kind of handling that on a separate thing. Okay, so kind of revisiting this electrical improvement proposal. I think we first looked at it, maybe it was in December. It continues to be an issue to have enough electrical capacity in the park to sufficiently provide for all of our vendors that require electricity. So basically what I did, the first quote that we got was from M&R Resources, and they were the subcontractors for the electrical plan in the park. So basically, starting with their scope of work, basically what they would recommend, and then I got 2 other quotes telling them basically what this quote says and to match it, to make sure that we have 3 of the same quotes. So the 3 quotes that we have are for M&R, TNG Electric, and HR Rocker Electric Company. The only difference that you'll kind of see here, in talking with TNG Electric, he was just like really circuit happy, and he was like, I think you need 10, not 4. And I was like, okay, well, I just need a quote for 4, but he put 10 in here. And I didn't quite have the time to circle back to him to say, what would a 4 circuit quote look like? So he's projecting, I mean, his is the, this is the largest quote but it also is accounting for more circuits.
Yeah.
And then HR Electric was the lowest quote that came in at around 2,800, but they also had some additional pricing to have a separate, I guess to have a dedicated panel in the planter area. And then basically some additional circuits beyond the 4 that we kind of discussed.
So those would be additions to their quote that's different from the other quote that's a comparison, if
Well,
we
not-
choose to do it.
Yeah, that was my question too. So what he's offering for the additional cost, is that already included in here, or that's just like this one-off?
For HR Electric?
Yeah.
So these are the 400 and then the 700 at the bottom would be additional costs.
If we chose to do it, okay.
Right.
Does M&R include those things?
That's what I'm trying to
HR offer,
ask.
yeah.
So M&Rs, let's see, so if you take a look at the scope of work, they are including a trough around the perimeter of the planter box, and then 4 additional outlets. All of them kind of represent like the scope of work a little bit differently. Cassie, if you want to like clue us in, if you can kind of find some similarities here.
I mean, they're not the same.
Yeah, they look.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, let me ask you this question. So as far as getting them on the same page, based on the needs of the vendors, and this is a very park that's going to be here for the rest of our entire lives. So is this guy upselling, or do you think based on what our needs are, it might be good to have more circuits, or based on
So
your
I told all
conversation?
of them basically the same exact pitch. I was like, this is what we have, these are the challenges that we're having, and, you know, ideally, this is kind of what electrical plan would look like, which basically means each vendor has its own dedicated circuit. Because the way that everything's ran, basically one circuit can run a household appliance. And what winds up happening is that we need to be running 15 to 17 household appliances at one time.
Okay.
So right now, there's 5 circuits in the park. And so I guess with that math, Tangi Electric kind of said, okay, well then, with what you're saying, I think you need 10. Others,
Because
10 additional circuits.
So did they visit, I mean, I know that
They all visited the site.
they all
I
visited the
visited with
site.
every single one of them.
So they just all have a different opinion about what needs to happen in order
that makes sense.
to
Well, based on
be
your math, what
successful.
you just said, Tangi Electric's the only one that
I did it correct.
took the assignment.
Well,
Well, no, I mean, so Richard, who's M&R, he was they did the electrical at the site. So he's probably more aware
He's
of what's
familiar.
there and what needs to happen than any of the others.
Okay.
But legally, don't we have to, if you got 3 quotes, don't we have to take the low?
well, so
I think they have to be
actually,
comparable. They're not comparable.
Yeah,
I
they're
don't
not-
know.
and actually, in looking at the checklist for best practices.
So did you didn't give them an actual scope of work? You just said, come out, take a look, tell us what,
I did give them a scope of work. I basically copied and pasted what M&R did. And I said, this is.
give me a price to do
Right.
this. And they chose to give you a different.
And then they were like, we're not sure that we understand that scope of work. We need to meet with you on site. And then that's where I start discussing our issues and what we are trying to work with and some improvements that we need. And that's where they were like, okay, well, this is what I think you need to do. So they basically gave, like, Tangi Electric and H&R both gave their own recommendation of what they think they should do. So if you actually, I was trying to get to the bottom of needing to secure 3 quotes versus not needing to secure 3 quotes. Basically,
I think we're below the amount, aren't we?
well, it says from supplies and materials for anything between 10,000 and 3,000, you're supposed to get 3 quotes. If it's over that amount, you're supposed to do a bid. For contracted services, it is over 30,000. So like, in anything, you can get 3 quotes. Like, I don't think that we're required, from what I could see, I don't think that we're required by law to choose the lowest one because this is not a supply or material.
Okay. So
So just to clarify, H Rocker Electric, with those two additions comes to $4,025. Just so everyone's aware.
Well, and then my question is, so Tangi did 10 outlets. Is 4 like the bare minimum? I mean, what if we grow? Let's just say we do that. Like, would we have to go back and?
I mean, in terms of circuits, like, yes, if there were 4 circuits there, that would certainly help
For now,
get everything stable.
for now, yeah.
Yes.
But we could need more.
We could need more, I guess is what I was getting at.
We could.
I mean, I think it'd be nice to have as many as possible.
Well,
Because
and-
it should
yeah.
just be easy for people, not to, I mean, you know the area better than I do, but like, in addition to vendors, what about just normal people there? Like, is electricity accessible if you're?
It really only winds up being an issue for our market because the way the system was designed was to like have Christmas lights running, things that don't basically produce heat, but everything that we're running, fryers,
Produces
blenders,
heat.
produces heat. Well, the other thing is like we've limited people using heaters and fans to try to combat some of those issues that we're having, but ultimately there still isn't enough power. So we're like, the farmer's market is a special case in like the electrical needs, truly, and just that we're running so many things at one time. So I think whatever the market needs, it will far exceed what any other group or organization would need in the park.
And, well, there you go.
I guess, are the 10, are they like thoughtfully laid out? I mean, we can't see what they're proposing.
Right,
Does
so-
it make sense to you where they're putting everything?
So I can pull up the site plan really quickly. If you think about the park in the planter box, where there's one oak tree and then we lost an oak tree and that's where there's 6 crepe myrtles planted, there are receptacles along the seat walls. The issue is that with all those receptacles, there's only 2 circuits. So there may be 14 places to plug something in, but you can really only run 2 things at a time. So basically, what I said to them was that the idea would be to run we would be tapping into some conduit that we already ran for a speaker that we were going to put in the park that was a part of a plan, to put a speaker there. But now that we kind of have something like a bit more emerging and needed, we could tap into that conduit to be able to be the source to run as many circuits as we would need. And so they would be kind of like laying in the planter box along the seat wall on the inside and like not so low so that they have contact to the ground because moisture would be an issue, but we would try to do it, all of them said that they would try to do it in a way where like it wasn't visible from like a sight line with the seat wall. And they would be kind of like interspersed and laid out along, like I'm doing this, you may not know what that means, but,
And I just want to ask a question, and this might be too deep, but M&R Electric, when they originally did this plan, did they know our needs and just fail to do, like, where did this miss happen?
so
Because then I'm like, do I trust this guy? If he's, and this other guy's trying to upsell, is this guy upselling us, or is he really being more astute, be more, whatever the word is, like making sure that we're taken care of?
I mean, I will say that like Richard Bailey with M&R, like he's been great. I mean, he knows like the challenges that like lack of electrical have presented, and I asked him, I was like, are you sure? Like, I would really rather you overestimate, and like, this is what he said in his professional opinion.
Why'd they give us 14 sockets that you can work too? I mean, that doesn't, that's a big miss for me in my head.
Were they, like,
But-
could we have 14 things plugged in if it was like an iPhone and they just didn't understand that the fryer was gonna
Right,
be
so you
plugged
can
in?
plug in like 14
Yeah.
things of Christmas lights.
Right, and it's
no problem.
fine,
But
yeah.
if you're-
I don't think they must have not understood.
They didn't understand.
Yeah.
Were any of these people there during an actual farmer's market experience, or did they just come like on a Wednesday afternoon?
Well, I think in my discussions with them, it appears that they actually advocated for a stronger electrical plan in the beginning. Cost was a concern, so things were kind of like taken back a little bit when the bid documents were prepared. And so they recognized like that it probably wasn't, it could have been better designed. They have recognized that.
Were they there during a farmer's market event, like, and
So
did they see all this stuff?
They weren't, but they knew that that's where the farmer's market took place, and they knew that it may require some more electrical needs.
So this is just a game to make sure the budget hit the number to get the project in motion.
Yes, that's true.
Gotcha.
Probably that.
And I think that we rely on the farmers market, try to be a place for them, and if you're a vendor there, you shouldn't have to worry about
Yeah.
electricity. So, I support you, Michelle, in getting what we need there to support the vendors. And I would ask that any vendor that quotes it, like, goes there and see, I've been there a lot, and I would never think of a fryer being there, and I've been there, so I wouldn't assume that they understand what the
Can we ask these three companies who proposed to just send a refreshed proposal based on what we're looking for so that we have three accurate quotes?
Well, I just did all the math, so real quick, if you want to know how this works. The first quote, M&R, $3,400 is 4 circuits and receptacles. The back quote rocker, if you add everything together, that's actually 6, right? And that comes up to, what did I come up with on that one? I'm sorry, hang on one second. $4,000. And then Tangi's 10 for $6,225. So we obviously need the most possible. I think Tangi might be the smartest direction.
Well, yeah, and I guess going back to my previous
And
question.
percentage-wise, it's not exponentially more.
No,
It's
it's
actually
not.
the fairest price out of all of them, based on what you get, so that's that.
But like I was saying, going back to my previous question, with them quoting for 10 and the other two, what is it, 4? Like, is there like a set vendors that we're gonna cap it at, or?
So right now, like, the highest need would be between 12 and 15 plugging in at a time.
Okay.
And so I think that with the circuitry that's already there, plus these improvements, that's what I said. I think that 10 would be like over like what we need.
Like way too many.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's over with forethought of growth.
well, we can only accommodate
So many.
17
And-
spaces.
yeah.
Yeah, you can only put so many people around that planter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Growth would be in another direction altogether.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't run electricity, well, we have had to run electricity to the park and like, it's a whole mess, truly. It's, we try not to run electricity to the park just so that we don't have safety hazards with, tripping and stuff. But this will basically provide, and honestly, the people who require the most electricity are the prepared food folks, like, and so we've kind of hit a cap on those types of vendors anyway, unless they're offering something that's like really specialized. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we decide on how many of these circuits we need and go back to them and say, adjust your quote, and then whoever's the best, then we approve it? Is that what we want to do?
sure,
Yeah.
Can we ask them to go there during the farmer's market,
sure.
so they can see
Yeah.
it in action?
But it's a Saturday too. I think we have to be conscious of that. But-
Yeah, that would, it's gonna require some coordination. I think,
Or can you?
I mean,
can
you don't need to be there.
I don't
Like,
think you need to be
it's
there if
just-
she
just
tells
go
them this
visit,
is what
yeah.
they're
You
using.
just-
This is the power.
Have you been there during
You
the
know?
farmer's
Yeah,
market?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
if you can communicate that, I don't know. But my thing is just, I think we just need an equal bid because
Get it in
they might be
line.
charging you cheaper to put more circuits because it's a scale. I do more, I give you a better deal. Like,
Yeah.
get the number and whoever's best, and then we can, is this an urgent thing you need?
I mean, it is urgent,
Okay,
but I think I would rather do it well.
okay.
So
Is there a way to approve this administratively, or after if we say that we would like to take the best bid based on all equal number?
how many, Cassie, do you have an idea of how many circuits you think we should do?
I mean, I think that probably what you have outlined, what you gave them, I don't understand why they all did something different.
Yeah,
But they knew
it
we were
seems
going to take a
strange.
look at it and basically make a decision on apples to apples. And they threw, bananas and grapefruit and all kind of stuff in there. I'm just wondering if there's a way to reissue it and say, look, we just need an estimate on, maybe just tell them, look, I just need an estimate on this. If there's a reason you don't think this is going to work,
Explain that, yeah.
put it in writing and tell us so we can we can look at it, but I don't know. They all have their own opinions and want to do work their own way.
But let me ask this question. Do we think we should go back and say, all right, Tangi gave me a bid for 10. Do we want to bid 10 now across the board and see?
I don't think we need
Saying
10.
we don't
Yeah,
need
but
it.
We don't need
need
10.
it.
Just because we can't, we're
Cap
not
at
viable to have that many
17,
use it
so-
anyway if it was there, because of the space
Future growth,
concern.
it's not possible.
I was just saying, because
Well, we'd have to restructure the whole idea,
Yeah.
basically.
Because they won't be able to reach the plug if you have to, like.
Yeah.
only
Like
thing you can
on
do-
rockers, if they added the extra because they don't think what their base was going to accomplish what we need, then explain to us why it's not going to accomplish what we need. I would just reach back out to them and tell them, look, I took it to the meeting. These are two different, what I originally gave you is what we need an estimate on. If you don't think that will work, can you just write something up to tell me why it's not going to work? So you have it, it's in writing, and we can all take a look at it.
Right.
And that's just like with H Rocker, like I think if they just explain why are you giving us another option? Mm-hmm. Like, because it looks, I mean, is is like 1 through 4 the same as the M&R one?
It's similar, but it's not
So,
exactly the
Just for
same.
a process of how this works, so we don't have to wait till another meeting, this is we really don't need to follow, we're doing this just to be stupid money, we don't need to actually have a bid per se because of the amount, right? Is that what y'all are saying?
No, I think we're saying.
We do have to have the bid.
But if it were over 30,
No, we don't actually have to have 3 options.
Yes, so my
Okay.
question is,
Right.
since you're the design lady who knows the most about this stuff, get you to look at it, if you think it's good, we can administratively approve it, if based on all of our conversation here is that we would like to get equal bids.
Michelle, do you have to have a vote to move forward with it?
No, because basically,
It's
like,
in the budget?
right, so I went ahead and budgeted for,
$5,000, I think.
yes,
Yeah.
for this fiscal year to do this. Now, from what I've gathered, if something is under the cost of 10,000, like I, as the director, could
Make the
Certify
decision to
that.
move forward with it.
expenditure, right?
Okay, well, let's just reach out to them, and you and I, just call me.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it, yeah.
Okay.
If I can interject one last tiny thing, M&R and HR Rocker, HR Rocker's base is 4, M&R's 4, so the only one that didn't really follow instructions was Tangi. So the first and the third are actually for 4.
yeah.
It's clear in the paperwork, without the addition at the bottom, right? And if he said you wanted more, maybe he said you want more, we can do it for this price, but those first and third bids are for 4 circuits.
So this guy was
Tangi's not.
upselling.
Tangi's not,
Yeah.
Tangi's not.
Okay. All right, so do we need to make a motion on anything, is my question?
No.
Good, okay, all right. Next, history exhibit draft narratives.
Okay, so our group is making progress on this project. It should be paperclip for you. The first is just sort of an update in our timeline through May and June and July. And then you can see, like, I went ahead and just printed out, like, the actual narratives that we've gotten so far. The group is still diligently working. Yeah, I'm glad that we're here. We actually have things on paper. Before it was just like bullet points. So the information that you see reflected underneath each of these panels it's not final versions, but like this is the extent of where we've gotten to with actually writing out what these panels are going to say. And so it's still kind of a work in progress, but this is more than likely, we'll be adding some additional information, but this is pretty good representation of kind of like the style that they will be written in. We'll have like one editor kind of go through and make everything has cohesive voice, but where we're at right now. Each one is kind of labeled as like the topic and then the narrative underneath. The kind of plan that we're going forward with in May is focusing in on this project just because I need to do that, and we're on a timeline with this state grant. In May, it's National Preservation Month, so Heather and I at the Historic District, we're all going to kind of come together and put more emphasis around this project to get it out to everybody. So these public input opportunities that you kind of see here will basically be very like loose mock-ups of the written narrative itself, documenting the stories and the photos, and just will be something that the public can actually read of what these panels would say. Everyone's like kind of eager to see like, well, what information will it include? So in terms of making sure that, we have made some gaps in our research or like looking for additional photos once we finish these narratives. That's kind of like the interaction that we kind of see here, actually putting these narratives on paper, showing them, and then, but it just being very loose. And so just kind of creating some dialogue around each of them because we've just really been presenting the topics that we're including. So between now and basically our next meeting, we're going to be presenting the final draft. So like these are roughly finalized. They're definitely still in draft, but at our next meeting in March, we'll be presenting the final drafts as edited by the Southeast Center for Louisiana Studies, so that is like our final thing that we're actually having printed on these exhibits. And then from that point, between our work group and the board's kind of approval of that information, and we've done all these public input opportunities, we plan to package the info and the photos later in May, and then send that to Antoine Marketing and Design, so that they can kind of finish and do the design phase and give us camera-ready artwork for what those panels will actually look like, making them pretty and having a cohesive design. And so projecting that they would be giving us kind of final artwork, giving them 3 weeks is what they said that they would need. By the end of June, we should have all that done. And then kind of moving into this next fiscal year. Obviously, I've kind of informed them that we're budgeting to pay them in fiscal year 2024. So by the time we get the invoice, it'll be July, just so you know. And then the request for proposals for the fabrication of the panels we'll have to do because it will be over 10,000. So just getting some additional quotes. That may take us some time to do while we're going through all these final approvals, which you can see listed here. So this final approval stage, everyone will see like the final product of what this will look like before we present it. And since we've done all of our due diligence of this is what it's going to say before we're showing them a final product, I hope that all these approvals will go pretty smoothly. And ultimately working to our grant deadline with the state, but also I think it would be really fun if it were done before hot August, so that we can kind of reveal it there.
Have we given Historic Commission heads up?
Yes.
What we're doing?
Yes,
So they
so-
have some idea, so, okay,
Yeah, so Jessica is actually on our work group.
Okay.
And Shauna
that's right.
Seals
Okay.
as well. But yeah, we actually,
She's no longer on Historic Commission, by the
that's
way.
right, she's moving. But yeah, Jessica is involved.
Yeah, she's not on there.
Okay. So when we start all these public input sessions, photos and anything else that might be incorporated into that final panel, that's going to be there for people to see?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
All right. Anybody else comments on that? Next on, if not, next on the agenda is the Events Committee report. Chelsea, you want to take the reins on that?
Sure. So just to recap, back in February, I think it was, we met with restaurant and bar owners just to kind of gain some feedback from them. From that, we kind of determined that majority of people who showed up for that meeting were in line with our thinking of moving Hot August from Friday night to Saturday, making it a longer event, so kind of kicking off with farmers market. We would do some kind of like pop-up attractions throughout the day, and then capping it off with a picnic in the park type event at the end of the day. Let's see, I mean, all in all, you know, at the bottom of it, the big discussion we still have to kind of nail down is the wine walk. So next steps, Michelle and I are going to be meeting with retail and professional service businesses. We also talked about launching an event committee just to kind of help wrangle everything in. Not necessarily just for Hot August, but for potentially starting November and some of the other events we do throughout the year. Of course, Hot August would be priority. I've got the action item to reach out to Southeastern's art department just to make a connection there, because another idea we had mentioned was bringing the art back into the event, so doing like an Art in August kind of thing. Michelle's been in touch with North Shore Arts in Bloom. And then we also need to meet with the city and police departments to kind of let them know that we're thinking about restructuring the event. And then Michelle and I had talked about over the course of the next like 4 weeks or so, we'll kind of get our ducks in a row and then plan to start promoting the event like that last full week of May.
And now, just from my memory, which is not very good, the wine walk idea to kind of make it better, would that be more of a daytime wine walk deal, and art and wine daytime, that way it kind of spreads the drinking, like those people might, you know, like,
Yes, but Michelle, jump in, because we're trying to alleviate the stress of the wine walk logistics off of Michelle and, yeah.
Staff. So kind of part of that, I actually talked to the art center today, and basically the events budget that I put together for the upcoming fiscal year doesn't have anything to do with wine walk. None of the expenses associated with it, and also none of the revenue. In terms of logistics, like, we can certainly try to do something where we like give all the businesses the mechanism to do it themselves, and then we can advertise for them. I also spoke with the art center today about if they would potentially be interested in coordinating that portion of the event. And so Melissa is back from maternity leave, and it does wind up being a fundraiser to a degree, like $10,000 to $15,000. So, meeting with them sometime in May, and potentially that could be a start of discussion to kind of collaborate around this event. So the onus isn't always on the DDD. So I think that kind of seeing where they're at, if that would be something that they wanted to kind of take on, I certainly think that the like light up glass and then like all the branding behind the wine walk, like having someone to do that is kind of also one of the appeals of it. So I think in order to like put the onus on the business owners, like, I guess for this year would kind of be a little bit much, just because we would have to like give them the process in June, and I don't know if we'll be able to like get all that together in June. So I think we're still kind of in like pretty formative planning stages for how the event will look a little bit different, but we've got people at the table to kind of see how that's going to go.
Crazy Todd DeLawn idea here. What if the Arts Center actually hosted the function of the wine walk, and the merchants were offered a table to represent their business there? Because one of the complaints we've had in the past. Yeah, like Art of the Cocktail, but the wine walk instead. And one of the reasons I say that is because in the past, lots of merchants have complained because people come in, they're drunk, they spill things.
Yeah.
If all of that is consolidated into one place, it's a whole lot easier to manage. And then each business could come in and sponsor a table, however that cost goes. And then they can bring brochures for their business or whatever they wanted to do for that. I just thought that was
I do
crazy.
think that's a good idea. I
Crazy
don't
idea.
know if time is in our favor. Because, I mean, for them to sponsor something like that, they need time also to promote it. But I do like that idea.
That's just something
Yeah.
to fuel for thought.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some potential there. I also know that most businesses like do see it, like the wine walk is added as like their business open house. So they may want to stay within their business. And we offer like businesses that aren't necessarily within walking distance. We offer like pop-up opportunities. So maybe it could be at the art center for some of those folks that are on the peripheral of our district. But yeah, I think there's some merit there and something that we can kind of take a look at with the art center. But yeah, if they wanted to do that portion of the event, I think it would work really well in their favor, and it would
And off of your
alleviate-
back, too,
Yes.
so.
It piggybacks off of white linen and all of that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it kind of, it makes sense to collaborate with our department.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
All right.
Kind of where we are there.
Anything else? We good on that? All right, next deal is the design committee report. Cassie.
Okay, we met on Thursday, April 6th. We had a really short meeting. Basically, we talked about the sidewalk reimbursement. So when we meet the first Thursday in May, we're supposed to have more input, actually put something down on paper on what we think, I don't want to say restrictions, maybe the guidelines for what that program is and what our participation is. We talked about having either like a square foot cost, so if somebody chooses to upgrade or, you know, do something fancier than what our master plan is, then we're not bearing the cost. So kind of better define what it is, definitely going to define that it's the materials, like the demo, the actual construction, it's not design fees, it's not anything else that's added into it. And then we may even have some kind of a cap. So we hopefully at our next board meeting will have some kind of a draft at least from the design committee on recommendations to have better guidelines. We have no guidelines, to have actual guidelines for the sidewalk reimbursement program. Because again, we want to encourage it and promote it, but we want it apples to apples,
Well,
going back to our
I just want
quote.
to ask this, what is the logic behind, because I know one of the things was whether we paid, normally we didn't pay the design fee.
We've never paid
We
that
never,
before.
right, so I guess my question is the logic to not pay the design fee because we never did it before? Or is there a reason that we don't think we should, if it's part of their whole entire project that they're, and I don't know that answer, that's what I'm just
Isn't that
asking.
usually the case? Like the design fee is based on like the whole project and
Yeah, normally,
yeah. and,
normally your design fees are based on your entire project.
Right,
Gotcha.
and it's
So-
usually they're not doing a sidewalk project, like they're not just renovating their
Right.
sidewalk.
Something else
Like
going
something
on.
else.
Almost, I'm going to say almost because I can't think of every situation, but they've been major renovations or new construction.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Lately, it's been new construction. The Okrepke building where Steakhouse is, the building that Wells Fargo is in, Stoa.
Built Elm.
Yeah, so either major renovations or new construction.
Okay.
So,
So meaning that design is encompassing all the other stuff and we shouldn't.
I mean, we're offering something to encourage them to
Yeah.
use the bricks, to add the landscaping. So we're offering to help, you know, subsidize the additional cost for complying with the master plan. We're not paying,
There.
yeah, right.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and then I think in other instances too, especially if they're on corners, they wind up installing, you know, the complete streets style intersection, so like.
Okay,
curb
yes, we
cuts.
talked about
Yeah.
that too.
Maybe like a
So,
separate,
at Amanda's corner, at Oak and Thomas, where all these
the
wrecks
back-
that have happened, there are ways to extend basically the sidewalk. And it also doesn't just protect the buildings, but it mostly protects the pedestrians at those intersections. So at these corners, we're going to talk about that at the meeting too. If they go further and do these traffic calming measures and make it better for pedestrians, that might be a separate, like if we establish a square foot cost for the sidewalks and landscaping, we have an additional thing for making the corners better and safer in our city. So we talked about doing there's
That
two
would be
different
good.
things there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to, if we want to encourage
Absolutely.
people to walk,
Pedestrians, yeah, we want
then
to
it needs to be safe,
I did
right?
notice the parking spots painted by Mariners and by booksellers. So.
Lost a parking spot.
So we did that, and we also, so something that's come up, couple of people specifically who've wanted us to have our design committee meetings in the evenings instead of at 9 o'clock in the morning. We brought it up, we put it on, I put it on the agenda for discussion with the committee, and we decided to keep it where it is. The meetings are being streamed live, and we're just going to stay there because no matter what time we move it to, it's going to be difficult for someone to make it to the meeting. So that was the decision of the committee, to stick with the day and the time that we currently have.
And it's live streamed, so.
Right.
Say so.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much all we discussed at that meeting.
All right.
The other item I'll just add to the sidewalk reimbursement program, and guidelines as well, also have a draft of a cooperative endeavor agreement that Andre prepared.
Yeah.
So that we kind of like have like the guidelines and an application and basically like a packet of all the information that we would need to enter into that with a potential sidewalk.
That we can give to the owner of the building, and they'll know basically what,
Yeah, so it's like a, basically like
a draft.
multi, like we can
Yeah.
use it for any agreements. We have that on file.
Okay. All right, next, the farmer's market manager position. I met with Michelle and sat in on 2 interviews. I didn't get to sit on the others with her. From those, I guess I'll let you talk about,
Yeah, so we received 25 applications, roughly 25 applications. I did 10 in over-the-phone interviews and then 6 in-person interviews. John sat in on 2, and so you can see the list of the in-person interviews that I did. I didn't finish doing interviews until today, so I knew that I wasn't going to be prepared to, for us to like hire someone, even though I really wish we were. But just kind of wanted to inform you that these are the people that we've interviewed in person, and I at least, and John discussed that we've kind of narrowed it down to 2, and we would like to do an additional interview with those folks, and he would sit in on both of those interviews, and then I guess we would come back with a recommendation for hire.
All right. The next thing on the list is the staff report.
Yes, last thing. So this was very, very quick. I did it at 5 o'clock today, so I probably forgot a few things. It's just kind of how time's running. Katie is not here right now because I had to send her to Lake Charles for our State Historic Preservation Conference. This is our spring quarterly meeting for our Main Street accreditation. So she is there in my place, and it'll be good for her to kind of like see more and get more knowledge behind, the different types of work that we do. And we have completed our quarterly report for that. Events we have next Saturday, which I cannot believe that it is next Saturday. So we successfully went before City Council and got all of our ATC items squared away and have applied for the permits. I'm still waiting for the permits, but we're doing the Farmers and Artisans Market Spring Fest Saturday morning from 8 a.m. to 1. And Benny's will be doing a Bloody Mary Mimosa Bar, which folks have really enjoyed. And then North Shore Arts and Bloom folks will do their art and flower market in the parking mall across the street from Brady's. So we're going to extend an hour and just have a spring celebration in downtown. We're helping them with sort of advertising their chalk walk. We've capped it at 100 and we've already hit like 80. So all of the chalk walk will be dedicated, or will be dedicated? Designated. The designated chalking area will be in Kate Square Park only. Check-in will be at Kate Square Park. It'll start at 2, and the park will be nice and decorated for picnic in the park later that evening. Starting at 5:30, we'll have live music by Mary's Wish, and then North Shore Arts and Bloom, they'll be selling some alcoholic beverages and non-alcoholic beverages. And then we'll have a table out there as well. So that will be a fun day. And next week, I'm trying to participate in this Walkability Action Institute. I'm gonna probably not do all of those days, but yes, it is a lot. But it's a really great opportunity. I actually tried getting our new city, well, we don't have a city planner, but the planning assistant, the planning coordinator, Amanda Vito, to do it because she's new and there's a lot of great information there. We'll have representation from Tangipahoa Parish Planning and me and I can't remember our whole Tangi team, but it'll be a good time for us to talk about walkability initiatives, intersecting with everything that we're talking about related to sidewalks and federal funding, state funding, and how that's a coordinated approach in our downtown city and parish. And the last thing I just wanted to put on here is a downtown lighting success story. Todd, this is all you.
Okay. So anyways, I walked all of the street lights from, let's see, Columbia Theater all the way to the DDD, right? All the way from, what's that street called? Hanson, where Kate Street Seafood Station is, and all the way back to the Brown Door. And we got every single light working now, except for one. I don't know what the status on that one is. It's one of them parking mall lights across from Kieran. So that's the only one that's still out right now, but everything else is working.
That is
Thanks for
great.
doing that.
How did you
Got
get it
calories
done?
in.
Tell us,
Super
tell us your
excited.
secrets. How'd you get it done?
He also got lights in the back parking lot behind.
Well, the first thing I did was she gave me a link for Entergy, which was super helpful. So everything that's on a wooden pole belongs to Entergy, and anything that's on a metal pole belongs to the city. And I picked up the phone and I called the mayor and I said, "Hey, bro, I love you. We got to fix some things." So he jumped right on it. He said, "Look, I appreciate you calling me." He said, "We got a long list of things to do." I overlooked priorities, and I said, priority of downtown being lit is very important. So, and they took care of it right away. So I don't have to use a subcontractor. I don't really care. It's fixed, and that's all we needed to know. So, and I'll walk the other side of the tracks sometime, probably in the next week or so.
Man, coming in strong in your new position. You
right.
got
Hey
it.
man, hey,
Way to go,
I'm not here to play.
Hitting the streets.
Michelle, I have a pertinent question for downtown Hammond businesses that I think I had a question on, so I think probably other businesses do as well. I know that you guys send out in the email, if you want to be added to the DDD calendar, do you need you need to submit all of your events through Locable in order to be added to the calendar for the DDD events?
Yes, so ideally what happens is the business owner creates their own account through Locable, and then whatever they put in their account, it automatically feeds into our downtown calendar.
Okay.
What happens right now, if most people aren't willing to take that step, so they'll send us stuff and then I have Katie manually put it into the calendar. The downtown calendar is something that, is a resource that we have on our website and is something that, our website actually has pretty good analytics and visitation. And so from what I've heard, that's one of the best ways that we can help business owners, in addition to sharing on social media and just trying to be more of a resource and sharing info out. And so, yes, the easiest way for us to help business owners is by them creating the account and putting their events in here. And they can be any event. If we have to put it in, then it's more difficult for us to manage 350 businesses, but they could put any of their events in there. So if the city has stuff going on, Art Center has stuff going on, we try to keep track of those things and put them in here. But this will only be improved by people kind of acting.
Is it a pain in the butt to do it?
Well, okay, so I do have some input, and I should have put this on the agenda, but I was a little behind.
Can we put it on the next agenda? Because I'd really love to talk about
Yes,
this.
so that process really is not good for the businesses.
It's not user-friendly.
I emailed Katie this week a list with links of everything going on, and I understand, y'all have a lot going on, but I think the businesses in general need a more clear protocol, because I didn't even realize until I started asking questions, I emailed Katie, why was this not in the email that everyone got about Arts in Bloom? But I think business owners just don't know the protocol, and maybe, I know you guys have sent it out before and discussed it, but it probably went in one ear and out the other. So maybe if we can just update, like, hey, if you want your events, this is how you do it, because
Did you try to
Is that
create an account?
in? Sorry.
honestly, I was too busy to have this,
Okay.
take the steps
Well, that's
to
what I was
do
gonna
it.
ask, is the local thing a pain in the butt?
It's like you gotta
Yeah.
create another account.
Yeah.
No, I created an account, and it's very cumbersome to use.
Okay.
What we might want to do is just get those guys, whoever owns, runs, controls Locable, tell them to come spend an hour with me and teach me how to use it. And I'd be glad to share that knowledge with anybody in the city, but it's really cumbersome and difficult to use. So when I signed up initially, I used it like once, and I'm like, I don't get it.
You don't want to do it again.
And I'm relatively tech savvy, so for me to be confused, I can understand why most merchants would be really challenged.
Didn't we have somebody from Locable do a Zoom with us like last year?
Did, yeah.
It was.
Or a
it was
lineable?
couple
That was a
years
couple
ago.
years ago.
Like,
Couple years ago.
the
It's been a long
idea-
time, yeah.
Yeah,
The idea that they have whenever you launch your local website,
yeah.
if you use it, then you like bring on a few business owners to be like ambassadors, and you kind of like have them know more of the like the ins and out technical side.
Right.
But I mean, I'll take a look at the like how it looks on the business owner side, and Steve is the guy that we work with Locable, and he seems pretty receptive to like feedback. But I figured that if business owners would already be using it.
If it was
easy
user-friendly.
to use.
Correct.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we need either a better system or we
It's
need
not.
like a very educational protocol
Right.
for the
And
businesses.
so, well, I think like in general, we don't know about anything unless we see it posted on their social media, or like someone like you who like wants to make sure that you're giving us the information. You'll email it to us. But
Yeah, I
like,
didn't know about
adding
this
in
Locable
I
thing.
didn't either.
another-
It's in every DDD email.
Yeah,
It's
it's in
linked
there.
and
Yeah.
says, but I'm like, oh,
That's not
I
good
didn't,
then.
I literally went back after I emailed you guys and I was like, wait, I know it's in the DDD emails. It says if you want your events to be included, go to Locable. But I think the average business owner, that is so many steps for them in their day that it is just, they give up.
Brutal, yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's like, it may not be that they create an account, like it may be that something that we just have to do is create a better system to capture that information from business owners so that we're able to manually maintain it. But I do want to take a look at that just so that we do have a better process.
Yeah, that is a huge priority for me, that our local downtown brick and mortar businesses are being highlighted on our website with their current events that are happening. I think it's a huge organic form of traffic that they're able to get, and that's, I mean, they're paying a lot of money to be a physical location in our downtown, and we need to be supporting them in that way.
I agree.
Is that any other comments on the last? We good? I get to adjourn the meeting? Meeting adjourned, all in favor?
So, yeah.
Were you waiting the whole time to do that?